Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so I was starting to say this. We were talking about this emotional asset management. So like financial asset management. So in money you have a certain financial capital. You have a financial capital, portfolio. So in which you have the money, there are your credits, you have debits. You put money in, you have a certain wealth, and then you spend it also. You spend it, and then you have to always keep a balance. There is input, there is output, there is investment, there are returns. And so then either you are rich or you are poor, or you are in debt, or you are bankrupt. So like that, these are the concepts in money. Are you solvent or insolvent? Yeah. So here also, so they say emotionally also we have a wealth. We have an emotional wealth. So these are our strengths. These are what are our assets. So we have emotional, from an emotional standpoint, we have certain assets. Okay. Then we have to manage this also properly. Because like money, it is limited. It is not unlimited. Suppose patience. I have patience. I don't have infinite patience. I have so much patience. So that means I have to utilize it properly. I can't let it drain out completely. So it's all quantified. Everything I look at in terms of quantities. So thus, whatever positive qualities that I have, my emotional strengths become my assets. My emotional weaknesses. So strength means whatever, my capacity to be self-sufficient. So my capacity to handle situations, my self-confidence, my self-esteem. So all these are assets that we have. Then we also have the deficiencies, the opposite of assets. I don't know what that's called, liabilities. So we also have liabilities, our weaknesses. So I'm say sensitive. I get hurt easily, or I can't handle certain situations. I have anger problems. I have sadness. I have anxiety. So these all become my liabilities because they can impair me, or impair my judgment, and then impair me from functioning effectively. Anything that helps me function better is my strength. Things that hold me back, they are my weaknesses. So thus I have this both. Then I always also invest. You invest, like you invest money. Emotions also we invest. We invest emotions in, suppose, a certain job. I work, certain kind of work I do. It is something that I like. I put in effort. So I put in effort not just on a mechanical level, but also on an intellectual level and an emotional level. I like what I do. And then I identify with what I do. And then I also get back something in return. I get back certain self-esteem. I feel good about myself. I'm recognized. I'm honored. I have a name. I get all these plaques. Whatever. That's what they give in this country. You finish 5 years at your job, you get a cup. You finish 10 years at your job, you get a pen. So like that, things they do. So they acknowledge your loyalty, your stability and things like that. So whatever I put in on an emotional level, even relationships are like that. So I invest in a relationship. We always invest in a relationship. So it is an investment. Really, it's an investment. So in the sense, there is a relationship. So like even whether it is a child or it is a sibling or it is a friend or whoever it is, I invest. Invest means what? So like money you invest, you may get a return, you may not get a return. You don't know. Sometimes you lose also. Sometimes you gain. And emotional investment is also like that. So I emotionally invest in somebody. Okay, so that's an effort, because any relationship takes effort. So the effort passes I put in. So obviously I am expecting something in return. I expect something in return, and whatever I get in return makes me happy. So the happiness I get, suppose I take care of my children, then I expect that, well, when I am old, so they will take care of me. Or at least they won't neglect me. Or they will some positive feedback you hope for. Suppose you don't get that. If you don't get that, that means it becomes like a bad investment. It's like a bad investment because return is not there. So that means what? So with a bad investment, you feel disappointed. In your overall portfolio, one has to balance, there are losses, there are gains. At the end of it, if you come out ahead, then you feel happy. Every small little loss and gain you can't get involved, get upset about. But overall, I have a feeling that I am richer, I am better off. Or you have a feeling that I am just exhausting myself, and then I am drained out completely. So emotionally we feel drained out. So in many different areas. So this is like some kind of a parallel between how do I manage this? First I manage this because, it's always difficult to manage emotions. It's easier to manage money. Really, it's easier to manage money. We are all used to. So money, it comes and whatever you gains, losses, it's easy. And emotion is more difficult. So in order to understand how you manage emotions, you use this parallel. Use an example of money. So in money, what do? So you make the right kind of investments. So here also means you have to have proper judgment. In emotionally also, in dealing with people. So suppose I confront somebody. Who do I confront? So if you confront the wrong person, then it's a waste of energy. Trying to convince somebody who doesn't want to listen to you, it's a waste of energy. It doesn't get you anywhere. Okay, so that's like a bad investment. Even if it is simple. At work, for example, I'm dealing with somebody, so I am trying to convince them, be nice to them. It doesn't work because the person doesn't want to listen. Then what do? I still have to get the work done. Then you exercise authority. Forget the other part of it. So, that means I have to have properly be able to judge situations. So learn to judge situations properly. So that you make the right decisions, you make the proper investment. So that is one way, like a money management kind of thing. Then you increase your capital. That's the other thing. In finance, you learn to invest saving. You save more. Like you save, the more you save, the more capital you have. Even if you have certain losses, you can handle it. So here also you save more. How you save in terms of emotions? Well, you save. One is by, so not spending it unnecessarily. That's one way to save. So don't waste your energy on wrong people. Don't waste your energy on wrong people. You limit. Be more proactive. I limit my involvement. Don't listen to news. I get very upset with what's happening in the world around me. Then don't watch CNN all day. Don't watch CNN all day. You just keep a limited time. Watch it only for half an hour in the evening. Or whatever, in the morning. Whenever. When it's not going to affect you. So like that, learning how to manage your life so that you save also. You then plus increasing one's strength. Whatever positive qualities I have, so I try to improve upon them. I try to increase them. Deal with the negatives. Make proper judgments. So like that in psychology, they talk about learn to express yourself. Learn to express oneself. Because a lot of our problems are our difficulty in articulating. We don't know how to articulate. There's a cognitive and there is an emotional. There's these two aspects to us. and they don't always work in tandem. They don't work together. They don't work. We should get rent this tandem bicycles here and go together. This is the bicycle. There are 4. There are 2 double and there are 4. In the 4, the fellows in the front have they can control. Yeah, right. But all 4 are supposed to pedal. There's a pedaling for all 4. Generally, when I look, I find the back fellows don't do anything. They're just sitting there. But they are also supposed to pedal. That means the front fellows are taking them along. Yeah, that's not nice. So that is tandem. You have to work together. We have a mind and we are emotions. We have cognition. In psychology, in development, growth, they talk of 3 parallel lines. 3 like this, vibhuti like. 3 are there. There is a physical, then there is the cognitive, and there is the emotional. Physical we all know. So physical has to do with just physical, anatomical growth. Then the cognitive has to do mainly with speech, language. Language acquisition is cognitive. And then understanding, cognitive understanding. So understanding subject matter. Buddhi functioning is one type of functioning. And then capacity to abstract, think abstractly, think of concepts and all. Then the third line is the emotional component, which has to primarily do with feelings and interactions, social interactions. So there is one's personal self, the feelings, and interacting with others on an emotional level, not cognitive level. Cognitive interaction is discussing math or discussing a problem solving. That is cognitive. Whereas emoting is different. That is have to do with feelings, sensitivity, and feeling good, feeling bad, that kind of stuff. Joys, sorrows, anger, emotions. So that is the third level. So when children grow, we have to learn things at all 3 levels. So growth takes place in these three parallel lines. And emotions and cognition always there's an overlap. There's an overlap. Emotions can affect thoughts, thinking capacity. So suppose I'm upset, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm angry, whatever these emotions are there, they can hold back my thinking process. That's why when we get upset, we are not logical. We exaggerate. We tend to exaggerate. Not because we don't understand, but because the emotions come in the way, cause us to exaggerate things. And if you have to feel hurt, we feel too hurt. We overreact. And we talk of overreacting, So we overreact because we overinterpret. We think more than what is there. Don't deal with what is in front. All the past comes in, the future comes. It just gets blown up. So the thinking capacity also gets affected when the emotions become intense. So emotions can affect cognition. Cognition also affects emotions, very definitely. So my capacity to interpret is cognitive. Sometimes I'm not good in interpreting certain kinds of situations. It's not that I'm either good at interpreting or not good at interpreting. It's never like that. Each one has strengths and weaknesses. So because, for example, when it comes to another person, we are very good at interpreting. If somebody comes to anybody with a problem, they always give very good advice. Because if I have to advise somebody else, my thinking process is very clear. Yeah. So that means what? It's not that I don't have the capacity to interpret a situation and see what is appropriate, not appropriate. The same thing when I have to do it, it doesn't work the same way. It doesn't work. Because our emotions become obstacles. Yeah. So it's not that we don't have the capacity to make proper interpretations. It is that our emotions become so overwhelming to ourselves that we, at that moment, We cannot judge adequately. We misjudge. So the two are there's a lot of overlap between our own buddhi and mind, manaha. So we have to this all you can only work very proactively. Suppose I talk of assets, I would think assets have to do with a lot. What are my emotional assets really? One has to do with birth, prarabdham. We are all born with certain strengths and weaknesses, even on an emotional level. Some children, babies are more reactive. Some are calmer. Some are more demanding. It starts from a young age, really speaking. Tantrums, etc. Frustration tolerance. Really, it starts from infancy on. Not later. Young age you will see. People, some babies, they want something, they want it right away. And they never overcome that. Never. It just changes. Qualitatively changes. They become adults who can't handle. No. And if you really look back, they have always been like that. Nobody develops new emotions, really speaking. It's all the same old thing that keeps manifesting again and again. So it is on birth, prarabdham, it gives me certain assets and certain liabilities on an emotional level, on a cognitive level. Then it is life experiences. That also plays a role. Some people have positive experiences in life. All our positive experiences are usually assets. Negative ones in life become liabilities because we carry them with us. And then whatever life brings and how we learn to grow and interact and all, really speaking, it's all positive, negative. But I don't think there is a true bankruptcy. See, you can't go too far in comparing it to financial management, Nobody becomes emotionally bankrupt. Because we all have emotional strengths. We have strengths and weaknesses. That's all. We have to work on it. You're never at a point where you don't have any strengths. You can always make a debit into a credit and a credit into a debit. You can't do that with money. In money also here you can do. Like taxes, they manipulate. Make a positive into negative and all that stuff. Like here, but really you can do. I may have certain liabilities, but I can convert it into an asset. Emotionally. There are people who do that. They make their weakness into a strength. Means it helps them. It helps them with their growth. So that's also possible. It's not always, need not be that way. But it requires insight. I don't think anything happens without the patience of looking at oneself and wanting to change. We have to want to change. Really. Otherwise we don't change. I can't even say we don't change. That's also not quite true, People do change. But it's very difficult to change unless I make a conscious effort. I want to change. I'm going to change. I want to be different. This is not how I want to be. I don't like myself this way. Forget others. It has nothing to do with others. The change part of it has to be oneself. Because if I want to change, I want to change for myself. The other thing about assets, I was trying to think about this. One interesting exercise could be to look back. Suppose I have certain strengths and weaknesses. Based on my way I handle situations, way I interpret things, way I react to people. Then at different decades of my life, do I feel I am richer emotionally or poorer than I was before? What's happening? Oh, I didn't even turn this on. Okay, too bad. So, what do I feel? Do I feel richer or poorer as a person? It's an interesting thing to think about how I used to feel. Suppose I make one list of my strengths. The way I used to, how I felt when I was in my 20s. Did I feel happy? Do I recall? It's all memory based. Do I think I was a happy person? Did I feel that more or less I was understood? Did I feel alone, lonely? Did I feel deprived? Did I feel angry as a person? Positive, negative. One plus, 1 minus, 2 minus. Like that, one point I can give. You see the total. 7. It's just some rough thing. Then what about after 15 years? In my 30s, how was it? In my 40s. Then now. It's interesting to see where I find myself. Suppose, I was at a 7 there. And now also I am at a 6.5.
No growth.
Or 7. That means what?
No growth.
Huh?
No growth.
No growth, or at least I don't experience myself as having become richer as a person. One can't only look at negative. You have to look at negative and positive. Self-confidence. These are all positive qualities. Self-esteem. How I see myself as a person. Am I content with myself? Am I happy with others? So this way when we look at, we get some sense of at least where we are at, or get an idea of us both strengths and weaknesses, and then work on it. But I have to then say, you know what, I don't like this about this is what I was before. This is what I am now. This is not I want to leave. I want to live a few steps ahead as a person, for myself. So I'm going to work on this. Whether I understand it or not. Sometimes I may not understand why I do certain things. Shraddha, faith. I think another big strength is prayerfulness. The attitude of being prayerful, I think, is a huge asset. But that also doesn't just happen, I have to make certain I have to deliberately try to understand, try to do things. At this age in life, we are not talking of young people. Of course, you teach them and you tell them do this, do that. But, when one is older, at an older age, one has to say, okay, then let me take some chances. Even with this, how do I become more prayerful? Not necessarily by doing prayers. Doing prayers is correct. But the prayer has to be done with a prayerful mind. So being prayerful is really what is expressed in doing a prayer. Seeing how to make God real in one's life. Every time we have to be conscious of it. Very conscious of it. I thank the Lord. Sometimes I feel that, sometimes for us, what becomes a little bit of an obstacle is this language. When we pray in vernacular, it's different than if you pray in a language which you don't know well. So I can sit there and say, Bhadram Karne Vishnu, Sanskrit. You do a Sanskrit prayer. But suppose I don't really understand the words and the meaning, then what I'm saying is not real to me. But in the same words, if I say in vernacular, in my own mother tongue, then it makes sense. Then it has to be real. Oh Bhagavan, I thank you. So suppose I say that in my own mother tongue, then unless I am feeling a thank you, It's different to feel that same feeling in a language I don't understand. So sometimes I think for that becomes a little bit of a thing, because a lot of our prayers we say that we think we are doing the prayer, but it's not very real inside, because my language is not real. Language is an expression of what is inside. I only say the language, but inside it doesn't match. Perhaps sometimes it's better to say some prayers in one's own mother tongue. Yeah. Then it is real, much more real. So, and Bhagavan also has to be, we have to relate on a personal level too. It's not just cognitive. Nimitta karanam, upadana karanam, it's not like that, no. Bhagavan is not just a karanam. Nimittam. Bhagavan is not nimittam. Oh, he is some nimittam. Means what? No, it has to be personal. Like I relate to a conscious being. Even in relating to a person, no, a doctor can come there and look at a patient. Either you relate to the appendix or you relate to the person, correct? I can relate to an appendix. This is the appendectomy. They'll say like that also. Surgeon, no? Next day morning he comes on the round. Doctor, this is the appendectomy. That was the hernia. That was the
case of heart disease.
Yeah, this is the MI that came yesterday. Like that, they talk also like that, So he is relating to the disease always, not the person. So who is Bhagavan? Nimitta karanam, upadana karanam, that karanam, this karanam. He is not, he is a conscious being. So how do I relate to a conscious being? No, but how can I do that? I don't see God. This is where we have our little obstacles, I'm not seeing Him in front of Him. I'm sitting there, and if I imagine I'm relating to a conscious being, if people look around me, what will they think? They'll think I'm crazy, I'm talking to somebody. There's nobody in front of me. So then I have to learn to see God around me. I have to learn to see God around me. That's why we have all these rupas everywhere, In Surya and Apaha. They look at the ocean. I have to learn to see what makes it tick, I look at the sun. I appreciate, the sun was so beautiful in the morning. The sunrise. Suryaha, it says so beautiful in that. That which is in Surya, whom Surya doesn't see, like that all is there. So to appreciate what it is, native Indians, they, at least in their culture, it is there. They know how to do this, how to appreciate divinity everywhere around them, in the things you see. Bhagavans, yeah, really appreciate, we say thank you to God. I should really feel I'm thanking Him. So that's a big asset, huge asset. I think it's the only real asset. So to make God a personal thing takes effort. I think it takes effort. Because I have seen it as taking effort for me. I don't know. Maybe for some it doesn't take effort. I don't know. But I think it takes effort. It takes a conscious effort. You have to see it within oneself. You have to want it. And just make an effort to, step by step, understand, look at it, see it. So it requires a lot of mananam, nididhyasanam, and never having this feeling that I know it all. It's a big obstacle. And we don't do it for others' sake. Yeah, there's nothing to do with other people. It has to do with oneself. I have to settle accounts with my maker myself. Others will never know.
Dhiraji, we have something called chart of accounts for taking inventory of our assets. Is there, I was looking into the system, is there any chart of emotional accounts which we could say these are definitely assets, these are definitely liabilities, and these are contra assets and things like that?
We have a general idea of what are positives and negatives, See, anything that helps me grow as a person is a positive, is an asset. Anything that holds me back from growth is a liability. So emotionally there are liabilities talked about. Even in our tradition they say Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, standard 6. Yeah. You in these 6 categories, just about anything comes in. So these are all our liabilities, obstacles. Then values. Values are assets. Scripture is assets. So our strengths are assets. Capacity to understand others is an asset. Self-esteem, positive. These are all assets. The capacity to interpret situations is an asset. Not everybody can have proper judgment, because of distorted values and all. So these are all then, and prayerfulness is an asset. So you can look at it in terms of myself, I can look at it in terms of environment, having friends, having the right kind of friends, having the right company, together. So family, and then of course experiences. What life experiences I end up getting. There also, if I happen to be fortunate with positives, if I'm not too much battered and shattered and tattered as a person, because that is also not in my hand, that can take its toll.
Yeah. What about having in terms of developing this relationship with God, having a Ishtadevata?
Yeah, Ishtadevata. We all have Ishtadevata. A Lord in a form that is Ishtam to me. How do I relate to any person? We have our own way of relating to people. So we have a certain desirable way of relating. Some people, every time I see an elderly person, I act like a baby. It is one kind of relating, So like that, we have all our own peculiar ways of relating. So how I relate to a person depends on me and the person and all that. Gods are also like so God, when I say gods, so a particular expression of God is Ishtam to me. So Narayana or Krishna or Sri Rama, whatever, something Ishtam. Partly because of just upbringing. Whatever you grow up with, you relate to that. Mostly upbringing only. So the family deity becomes your deity. But even within a family we find all people in the family won't have the same ishtam, same deity that they can relate to. So some relate to this one, some. So each deity has its own characteristics. That means God in this particular aspect is appealing to me. God as somebody who protects is appealing to me. Because what? I am somebody who feels I need protection. God as somebody dynamic is appealing to me. So it's a dynamic entity because I'm a dynamic person. So like that we all have. God as mother is appealing to me. Some people can relate to God as a female form. In female form also choices are there. There can be Mahakali or there can be Sharada. The different forms are there. So that means my ishtam is determined by my what? Psyche. It's obvious. By my own personality, by my own psyche. What it needs. That way is beautiful. In fact, is good, So that each one can have what is ishtam. Sometimes our ishtam also changes in time, which is also okay. Because after all, we are worshipping the same Lord. So it changes. Sometimes people get this question they ask often. If I change my Ishta Devata, is that a problem? All so many years I used to worship Krishna. Now suddenly I find that I seem to be worshipping, inclined for more Shiva. So what? I don't want to offend him. Krishna, I don't want to offend. So they don't get offended. They don't have a problem. So that is one aspect of Ishtam. Doesn't matter. The other way is to every deity is really the same. See, which is what, there is a certain logic to how I pick things also when we do. We have seen stutis for Krishna. We did, Govinda Ashtakam. Then Iswa Ardhanarishwara Stotram. Then Devi Mahatmyam. Then all this Dakshinamurti Stotram. Vishnu Sahasranam. When we look at different deities, different aspects of that same Lord, you don't see the differences, You see the same, you learn to see the same thing, Whereas people who don't learn like that, you can see what happens. There are people who go to the temple, they will go to the left side, they won't go to the right side. They'll go to the right side, they won't go to the left side. Because this is Shiva Parivar. Even Parivars we separate. All the Shiva's family is on the left side of the temple. Vishnu's family is on the right side of the temple. Suddenly I have to put one lingam. Now does he belong that side of the fence or this side of the fence? The problem. He should belong on his side of the fence. Because his side is that side. But this side is, the other reasons why we need to put it this side. But this certain minds have this genuine problem. Other minds don't have it. So it is nice, we have our own ishtam, but it's all really, it has to do with what is there in my mind at a given moment. Bhagavan responds in that way. Bhagavan also says like that. In whichever form you invoke me, in that form I will bless you. He says. He doesn't even say, in that form I'll bless you. Whatever, doesn't matter. You invoke me as a donkey, as a donkey I'll bless you. The donkey blessing, Bhagavan is Bhagavan, infinite. There is nowhere that the Lord doesn't express himself already. So wherever I invoke the Lord's blessing is there in that form. The Lord has no problem in doing that. Ishtam depends on us.
Dhiraji, going back to bankruptcy, emotional bankruptcy. So, bankruptcy on the financial side is personal bankruptcy, family bankruptcy, business bankruptcy. Issue we have in the financial industry is what is asset to me is a liability for the bank.
Correct.
What is asset for the bank is a liability for me. What is an asset to me collectively may become a liability. So how do you suggest that once you build this chart of emotional accounts, let's say we do that, then you find out, you calculate the numbers and you assign a singular value to every single item. Let's say there are 200 items you calculated. So you come up with a value of passing mark, and then you do it with a group, be a spouse, be a family, be your kids, anyone there. The number may come out to be negative. So how would you identify that? Or is there some sort of yardstick we could use that I guess the standards are just not there yet?
I don't think, it's an interesting idea, how when you stretch this financial model. So in finance, what is an asset to one what can be an asset in one context? If you change the context or from another reference point, the same asset is a liability. Okay. So how do you deal with that? You deal with that. Nowadays you can't deal with that. Obama won't allow it. You deal with it by hedging, hedging. So that means you gamble this side, that side, both sides. So you come out ahead. This is what the whole problem now they're talking about. We can't do these things with emotions, That's why I think it makes more sense just on a personal level to look at this. You can't carry this interpersonally too much, Because also, asset, a true asset is an asset for everybody. What is an asset? So sensitivity, caring, my capacity to care is an asset, suppose. It's a quality. My anger is a liability. Not to others, to myself. Now, how can this something, the anger itself is a liability. Caring is an asset. Now, my anger cannot be an asset to anybody. Really speaking, Now, somebody can manipulate me and say it's an asset. I am angry. So somebody teaches me to channel my anger to destroy somebody. So he benefits from it. So my anger became a asset for that fellow. Religious wars are like that. Make the fellow angry. Make A angry at B. This is called provoking, But truly speaking, it's a liability for everybody. Even for the fellow who takes advantage of it. You may take advantage of it. But it's not a true asset, So, an asset in terms of qualities, an asset is an asset. If I'm caring, that caring will be an asset always for everybody. If I'm angry, that anger will be a liability, not only for others, even for me. So, from our own standpoint, when we look at it, it's like growth, Big, I want to be a big person. What is bigness? Really, what is bigness? When you become big, what do? You crush others. In the process, we crush other people. All the small things around me. That's why they say don't sleep with the baby in the same bed. Parents shouldn't sleep with babies in the same bed. You know why? Because they can crush them. They are big. So big means you can crush people. But that is not bigness. That was the story, I was mentioning this in the class. Where Vishnu becomes big. In Vamana Avatara, he grows. He grows to pervade the whole universe. That is growth, bigness. Bigness means you then encompass everybody. Really, then you are big. You don't crush people. Only thing in even Bhagavan's bigness, he couldn't include Bali, Mahabali in the first 2 steps. He covered the whole universe. He couldn't include him. Because that fellow excluded himself. Even God cannot include us within himself if we choose to exclude ourselves. Then only after Mahabali surrenders, then that becomes his 3rd step, means he can include him. So that is bigness. So this bigness, really, bigness can be a liability if this is how I understand it. If my bigness is in comparison with others, then I will crush others. Competition. But if my bigness is the bigness of Bhagavan, where there is no other, there is no comparison, then I won't crush anybody, I'll include everybody. Whatever we do is always comparison. When I say I want to be big means what do you mean by big? What I really mean is I want to be bigger. I want to be bigger. Bigger means comparative. I want to be bigger than. Not I want to be big. Because if you truly want to be big, you can't be bigger. You can't be bigger. You have to be biggest. If you truly want to be big, the substantive big is the superlative biggest. The substantive is not the comparative. So there can be no true asset which is a liability for another. Should not be. Then I would say that's not an asset.
I'm going to go back into a pragmatic model. I'm just thinking, the model which seems to be working fine, and you already gave an example, irrespective of assets or liability, if we just drop the concept of the asset and liability based on what you just said, if we make a model of childhood, semi-adulthood, and the current position, I think the only thing we should see is the transition. If there is a positive transition or a negative transition, I think this model would work more effectively versus this asset liability, because this will just crush us.
That's true. That's why I said this, because there's so much financial talk going on nowadays. They came up with something which is okay, some kind of positives and negatives and liabilities. But really speaking, you can't think like that, We think in terms of values. I mean, there is some parallel we can draw, but we can't take it too far.
What was important at one time in life is not important.
Not important, yeah. That also true. As it changes, things change.
But the trend will establish.
Help me. The trend will give me some markers as to what I need to work on. Because in life we want to feel like we've moved ahead.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with, I have to feel I have moved ahead as a person. Generally what happens is, because we are not sure of that, then we are looking for other things to make us feel that I have gained something.
Right.
So that's why, because before we are too old, we want to accomplish certain things. The last car I see in my whole block, suddenly everybody has bought expensive cars. This is all average, middle class neighborhood. No, the block is middle class. So till now, while everybody was working and all that, they all had a middle class cars. Your Toyotas and your whatever, Camrys and this, middle class cars. Suddenly, so you look around and everybody has BMWs and Lexuses and all. Now, it's not that suddenly these guys all got a lot of money. But you look at who they are all retired people. Just about close to retirement, This is, I'm telling because it is natural. This is a human thing to do. So it almost looks like, you decide at the end, just before I let me kind of, feel that I have gotten somewhere. It's true, we all do this. Just you feel good. So this one, this side is there, that side is there. Suddenly, it's not that suddenly their whole asset has changed. Because why? Because we want to feel that I have moved ahead as a person before it's too late, And instead of also again dwelling too much upon the past, means just to make some kind of an assessment of where we are at, and then I move ahead as a person. That even the effort to move ahead makes me feel good. Whatever, even before it, I didn't even make an effort. Now I'm making an effort. That's a big movement, So.
Dhiraji, we talk about emotional intelligence. Is it similar?
Yeah, they talk about emotional intelligence. It's similar idea. It is my assets in terms of my emotional self. Yeah. Like IQ. Like that there is an emotional quotient. Some people are more vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable. Some are very sensitive. I can't handle anybody looking at me just like, rudely. Or anyway, there are some people who get very upset. There are some people who it's the water flowing off their back. Anybody says anything, it doesn't matter. They will do what they'll do. Doesn't bother them. Some people, even if you don't do something, they get upset. So this is all, this is what you are. It's like an IQ. Some are smart, some are not so smart. So here also emotionally, emotion means in terms of interpersonal, myself, and in terms of interacting with. I may be very strong as an individual, but when it comes to interacting with others, then so that in emotional growth, one aspect of it is interpersonal. And the other aspect is self, like self-esteem. Self-esteem is centered on oneself. Whereas getting along with somebody, not like Ginger. You know about Ginger? Can I tell about Ginger? Ginger, what happened to Ginger? Ginger, I should Suman know.
Ginger Rogers?
No.
Ginger the dog.
Ginger Sridhar. Ginger Sridhar, the pet, the dog. The dog is Ginger.
Oh, I see.
So the dog had to be sent to...
I'm glad she told me, otherwise I'll put that in the chai. I'll be thinking...
No, dog had to be sent to daycare because nobody to take care of. Daycare. So Ginger got thrown out of daycare because she wasn't behaving. So Lakshmi saying, even my kids never got thrown out of daycare. Ginger is getting thrown out because poor thing, she never learned how to get along with other dogs. Didn't get a chance properly, Also, The southern dogs might be different from the northern dogs. That's also possible. That's
No speak English.
yeah. So north and south, will never meet, even here.
No, they cannot because north is too far ahead.
So these are all the blue coats and those are the red coats. And,
IQ, is it hardware or software? In the sense of, do you count
Yeah.
it? So then, if emotional intelligence, how much of it is predetermined?
Exactly. No, that's why I think they talk of it as a EQ quotient. IQ doesn't change much. The change in IQ, when you do testing of IQ over a period, over life, IQ doesn't change much. The range, even if it improves, there is some improvement, not much, not a big dramatic shift. Suppose somebody is test mildly retarded on IQ. He's not going to suddenly test as high average, even with a lot of training and study and education and all. Maybe might improve a little bit, few points. So there is a very big prarabdham element is there. Same is true for emotion also. That's why you can tell from a chart, horoscope, the person's personality.
How?
Otherwise, you can tell.
How does it relate to...
It relates because your chart is supposed to be prarabdham. You're born with it.
Based on the time of your birth?
Yeah. So your chart, this is very easy. People can easily tell. A good astrologer will tell you exactly your psyche, your psychological profile.
This is scary also.
So it's true, but it's true. It's like physically we are able to accept that physically.
If you accept that, that means you're going to walk through your life with blindness.
No, see, we are not saying it's 100%, but you also don't have 100% capability to change either.
You won't get the opportunities.
No, you won't have total capability. Physically you can't change. How far can you push yourself physically? At the Olympic level, just from a human standpoint, a human being can run 100 yards only maximum speed at some point. If you take all the Olympic athletes from different parts of the world, different races, different cultures, different backgrounds, different traditions, they all come to the Olympics. They are just fractions of seconds away from each other. That means there is a limit. Physically there is a limit. It's not that you have infinite capacity. Body has a limit, every organ has a limit, everything has a limited capacity. I can only see certain range. It's what we are born with. Maybe 3 generations down they will shift. But there again, that group will have, the best will be only very close to each other. Same way, IQ also is like that. I'm certain capacity I'm born with. I can improve it a little bit, but it doesn't, an below average doesn't become a genius. No, it doesn't. They've done how many tests and all. They see this.
In terms of personalities, why you have an opportunity to change.
You have an opportunity to change, but there again, that capacity is not unlimited. It is limited by your own limitations. Just as physical limitations are there, cognitive limitations are there, IQ-wise. Why, on what basis am I excluding emotions? Why not there be emotional limitations too? On some level it's true. You take children, 2-year-olds. I take 10 2-year-olds. 2 years is not much life, to establish any great patterns. Just 2 years. What happens there? There's a big difference in emotional capacity. Some are very calm, some are very hyper, some can be easily upset, some are, there are basic emotional, they call it the traits. Emotional traits. There's what is called a trait anxiety. So anxiety, there are some people who are born somewhat anxious. They tend to be anxious. It is, you see this from childhood on. They are worriers. Even the little one, they get anxious easily about things. As they get older, their anxieties increase. There are some people who are not, they don't get anxious so easily. Now this person, something is there, anyway. So what happens, if there is this trait in the person, that means you can't easily, this person becomes an anxious adult. You can't just say, don't worry. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. Because the mind tends to be somewhat, it's not really that, it's not that they have full control over it, So that's why the anxiety traits, there are depressive traits. You can see in a family, you will see so many people in the family will be anxious type. Now, however we explain, the point there is, if you look at the chart, a good astrologer will say, this fellow worries a lot. It shows in this house, they will say like that. This fellow is an angry person. He tends to get angry easily. And then you tell the person, it looks like you're very angry. He said, no, I'm not angry.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Then you ask his wife, and then wife will say, he's very hot, short-tempered, So that means, it is there are indicators there, So many traits like that, even on an emotional level, physical level.
But he doesn't get angry on anybody else, doesn't he?
No, then you have to look at the wife's horoscope. Also, That is because of some that word Mangal dosha. Whatever dosha is there. Some dosha is there. Mars is Mangal, no? Yeah. No, what I'm saying is some indication is there. Indication is there.
But Dhiraji, you said...
That doesn't mean there is no control. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah.
No, you said if you are aware of what your personality is like, then you can work on that.
Correct.
So if you have such traits, and if you are blessed enough to find somebody who will tell you, listen, you have such traits, and makes you aware. Many times you think it's natural, and if no one points it out, many times you don't even realize. Once it's brought to your attention, and if you sort of take care of that, then you cannot say that it's your trait, then you have to live with it.
No.
Right?
No, that's
true.
true.
So in this lifetime, you do have the opportunity to change
Correct.
what you're born with.
Correct. You do. You have an opportunity. That's where Purushartha comes in. It's always Prarabdha, Purushartha, both. So there is an opportunity to change.
In your horoscope, it will also say that you have this, up to a certain time in your life, you will lead your life like this, and then it will change for you? Or is it because of your own effort that you can change?
No, it also indicates, see, there are periods of life you go through where you change, things get better and all,
That's why it's predetermined then.
Huh?
It's predetermined
It's
for your...
to some extent, things are predetermined. To some extent, we can modify them. You do not have total control over things. neither is everything totally predetermined. It's all percentages. And percentages also vary depending on what the circumstance, what the situation is. And just to comment on what you said, so if I have certain negative traits, and if there is somebody who can point them out to me, then that's an opportunity for me to change. But point them out to me in a way that I can hear.
Yeah, that's right.
Because again, that also becomes difficult sometimes, yeah. Because, it's always difficult to hear things. We are ready to hear things, but it depends on how it is told. Always. Just as when I am talking to a child, the child doesn't always hear me. I have to be very conscious about when to say, what to say, how to say, if I want that person to listen. Naturally, So listening is not only dependent on saying, it is dependent on how, where, what, where, everything.
But Dhiraji, that particular thing, if you yourself know you have a weakness and that is your weakness or whatever,
Yeah.
no matter what place, time I choose to pick to point it out, it's not going to sit well because I already know I have this weakness and then you go, it's like rubbing salt on a wound.
No,
it
then...
only flares, it doesn't really help the situation.
No, that is where the communication part comes in, expressing. Learning how to express oneself becomes important. So suppose there is two people are there, and then one person, suppose I have a certain vulnerable area, a button, that always gets pressed, this particular thing. Then, if I am able to articulate that in this area, no matter what you say, or how you say, or whether it is reasonable or not reasonable, I am sensitive. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. I am sensitive. So what should we do now? Either you don't say this at all, or I have to learn to accept it in certain ways. So either I say this is an area off limits of discussion. Let's not talk about this at all. Or perhaps, there is some way in which you can indicate that I won't react. If you already predetermine that, then you also won't react that way. Suppose I say, no, don't ever tell me anything in this area, but leave me a note. Or don't even leave me a note.
Run out of notes.
You mail me a note. Or you email me a note. I'll open it or I will not open it. Put there subject matter. That's why email has email and subject. What's the subject? So under the subject you put sensitive material. Then I will decide, am I ready to open it, not open it? Shall we do it this way? Yeah, okay. So that means there is a certain, that means you have already made a certain agreement which cuts down on this wrong reactions. The question is, we have to want to do these things. Yeah. Generally what happens, one person wants it, the other person does. It's too much effort. It's too much effort. Generally we want others to make the effort. We don't want to make the effort. Yeah. But then again, it's all a matter of give and take.
Easy to find fault with others.
Always.
Quick question. We were talking earlier about regression therapies. Does that really work?
We have to, regression therapy, I have to also understand what is regression. Regression is normal. We all regress. Okay. Regression means, So I act in a manner of a earlier stage, developmental stage. Okay. That is regression. So I'm an adult now. Okay. I'm an adult. So I'm self-sufficient. I can take care of things. I don't need anybody. I cook, I do my laundry, I go to work, everything I can do. Then one day I catch a cold. If I catch a cold, what happens? So I am in bed in the morning. I don't want to go to work. Then I complain, I say, I'm not well. How come you're not going to work? I'm not feeling well. I can't get up. I think I'll skip today. I won't go to work. I don't even feel like taking a shower. Can you make me some tea? Can you do this? This is regression, really. How sick are you? I'm having a headache. How bad headache? Shall we go to the hospital? No, we need not go to the hospital. Shall I call the doctor? No, I don't think it's that bad. You want a Tylenol? No, I think I can wait a couple of hours and see. Oh, really? So then how bad is your headache? Oh, it's there. I don't feel like doing anything. What is this? This is a self-sufficient man. Taking, with 300 people working under him, he can solve all the problems in the world. And here he is. This is called regression. Okay.
That's not fair statement.
It is regression.
You said in the beginning itself, you are sick on that day.
No. Now I'm categorizing this now as the degree of sickness. Okay. Yeah. There is sickness and there is sickness. Yeah, like your child gets sick and doesn't want to go to school. And then you say, what? Okay, what's the matter? No, mom, I don't know, I'm feeling sick today, I have a stomachache. And then if you're very caring and sensitive and the all anxious mother, then you say, okay, don't go to work. And the minute is 8 o'clock time, after 15 minutes the fellow is running around playing. Okay, so there is that kind of sickness. And then there is a sickness which is a real sickness, So what happened? What did he do in the first? He regressed. That's called regression. You become dependent. No, mentally, even psychologically. Even though it's manipulation, every day he doesn't want to go to school, but every day he doesn't manipulate. Something happens that day. So that day, suppose dad decided not to go to work, took the day off. So now he knows dad is at home, mom is at home, I also want to be at home, so we can all go out together for something. So it's a different idea. We've all done this. So we know. But the behavior is regressive in the sense that you act like an earlier stage of development. Like children, they get into baby talk when the baby is born. That's called regression. Now adults also, we also regress. When we are vulnerable, we regress. We want more attention. We want more caring. So that is called this regression. It's a kind of a regression. It's not necessarily bad as such. I'm just saying what the mind does. When mind becomes more, suppose I meet an elderly person, sometimes. So there is one opportunity to regress. So you see somebody elderly, then you remember, then you say, so my mother used to cook this kind of curry and that kind of vegetable, like that you say. Then this elderly, lady feels bad for you, and she also makes curry for you. Suppose I'm just giving a simple example. It's a kind of it is a regression. This is what is psychological regression. So it happens to everybody. We all do this. We all regress when we are vulnerable, like when we are sick, or when we remember certain things. So regression as a therapy, when you go to a psychiatrist, you regress. Psychotherapy involves regression. Because I want to be taken care of. Normally I can take care of myself, but I want to be taken care of. So taken care of need not always necessarily means you cook and clean for the person. Taken care of can also just mean emotionally. So I want some attention. I want some understanding. So nobody understands me. Then you go to a person and they understand you. So generally when you go for therapy, people regress. That's why in analysis they would put them on a couch. The idea of a couch was that when you lie down, you are vulnerable. You can't fight. To fight, you have to stand. That's why when somebody comes angry to fight with you, the first thing you should do is, please have them sit down. Not lie down. Lie down means he'll get suspicious. Because, why he'll get suspicious? Because it's a vulnerable position. Yeah, he's come to fight. So he has to be on his toes. But you have to be polite and say, why don't please sit down. We'll talk, Because once you sit down, you can't fight the same way. Physically at least you can't fight. You can yell. So whenever you are having a heated discussion, first thing you should do is sit down. Don't have a heated discussion standing. Better still lie down. Then it's difficult to fight, So look at the ceiling. That means you're like a baby, Babies lie down and look at the ceiling all the time. That's why in analysis we used to always have a couch. Because it facilitates regression.
Dentist also does that.
Dentist also puts you. You can't get up and run, So what happens with that? How does it help? So because once I regress, then my vulnerabilities become evident. Then I can work on them. I can see them, recognize them, work on them. So there's regressive analysis. They will facilitate. Nowadays they don't do all that. Analysis and all, they stop doing. Because what happens is, because a person regresses, then you have to get them, it's a process. The process is slow, takes time. Then they have to learn to see. Hey, really, how come you're acting like a baby?
What's wrong with
What
that?
happened?
What's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. How come? How come in the sense... No. How come doesn't mean why. How come can mean why. How come you are doing this? Means why are you doing this? Or how come can mean what is it that prompts you to do this? So you learn for yourself. I'm not saying don't be this way. So that you learn for yourself what prompts you to do certain things. That's therapy. That's called regressive therapy. Very helpful.
But some people go for therapy for a long time. Every 2 weeks they spend 50 hours, 60 hours.
Well, it depends who's providing the therapy. If Meera is on the other side, you're going to be there for long time.
That analysis generally used to be long term. But then, part of a good therapist always, even while they are, it's like a rehab, A good rehab, the minute you do the surgery, you also want the fellow to start walking. So a good therapist always does that. You always make a person independent, not dependent on you. Yeah.
Dhiraji, what part of transactional analysis helps to resolve the problems?
No, in transactional analysis, it's a model, There's a model called transactional analysis. Basically, it's a transaction is an interaction, So we transact with each other in certain ways, So how we relate to each other as an adult, as a child, as a, this kind of a thing. So different patterns of relating. We tend to relate to everybody in the same way, more or less. It's not anything new. Every person is not unique in the way we relate. We have certain patterns of relating. So generally, the way I related to my parents is the way I relate to all parent-like figures. The way I relate to my siblings is the way I relate to all sibling-like figures. So sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not appropriate. Or sometimes it works, it doesn't work. I can't act like I'm everybody's father. Yeah. So in that, you learn to look at the interactions and then cognitively change that, understand that. That's transaction. As opposed to some other model where you look at yourself, your own development. You're not understanding in terms of, all these models. It's like Ayurvedic model, homeopathic model, allopathic model. You take a model, you understand the illness in that particular model and you treat it within that model. You can't understand an illness in one model and treat it with another model. You can't say your problem is because of extra pittam. So what should I do? Go take a Tylenol. It doesn't really work. It's two different models. How does Tylenol change the Vata Pitta? No, it doesn't really change Vata Pitta. But removes your headache. But that is based on allopathic model. So like that here also there are different models of looking at a problem. And then within that system you work and then it works. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can take a break. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om